Hey Spurs fans, and welcome to a new episode of the News for San Antonio Spurs Roundtable, powered by Project Spurs. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia. And with the Spurs limping into the playoffs, it's now a question of rest and health versus playoff seeding. We're going to talk about that and a lot more. But I'm joined by, actually, I don't know who I'm joined by because it looks like twins are here. One of you guys are Paul, one of you is Jesse Blanchard. I'm Paul Garcia?
Correct. Yeah.
All right, I got it right. Paul Garcia of ProjectSpurs.com and the newest member of the family, Jesse Blanchard of ProjectSpurs.com. Guys, did y'all coordinate before the show started?
You know, we got together, we met, we're hanging out during All-Star Weekend, spent the whole week in Houston, and just kind of chemistry thing. It's
I
just
feel
unnatural.
left out. I'll be honest with you. I feel left out. You should have passed the memo to me.
Yeah, I don't know. It happened this way, so it's.
All right. Well,
it is what it is.
It's a mystery, and we'll talk about that maybe at a different show. But right now, guys, let's face it. This Spurs team is limping into the playoffs. I mean, it's a laundry list. You got TP. You pick a body part, he probably heard it. From his ankle, for his neck to his finger, icy down the knees, everything. Kawhi Leonard, frequent sore knees. Yesterday's game versus the Hawks, Diao, back spasms. The list goes on and on and on. But now the question is, and of course, you know, we can't forget Manu Ginobili, 4 weeks out with that hamstring. But is it time to just pretty much shut it down, maybe concede that #1 seed to Oklahoma City, and just go in there healthy? I'm going to start with you, Paul.
I'm going to go back and I think you are going to see some health, factors going in with Coach Pop and how he's going to rest his team. But I think he also might want that #1 seed. You know, they have now that OKC just lost to the Knicks as of today, which is Sunday. They have that game-and-a-half lead, and you know, each team has 5 games left.
Wait, did you say that Pop is watching OKC?
I think he might be. I mean, just the way he prepared for that game the other night, Thursday night. I mean, he rests guys the second half. He wanted to make it a competitive game. Now, of course, he's not going to choose, you know, a #1 seed over his health of his team. So, I'm not shocked if Tony Parker doesn't play the last 5 games. However, I think Tim and Kawhi, he still coordinates their games to try to maybe get that #1 seed. I think he's still going to rest. They have 5 games left. He might rest him 2 or 3 games on that stretch.
I don't think Pop cares about playoff seeding, does he, Jesse?
Well, first, Pop's not going to concede anything. I mean, he expects his guys, no matter who he throws out there, to perform. You saw last night, he was a little bit, visibly frustrated after the game, calling out his team for it almost sounded like a lack of professionalism outside of Duncan. The biggest thing all year has been health, right? All year, if we can get to the playoffs healthy,
Well, that seems to be the mantra of the past few seasons of playoffs. It's always that health going into the playoffs.
It's always health, and you have to manage as best you can. I think, while health is important, they also need to reestablish some continuity to get some chemistry back in their defense. We've seen a lot of breakdowns towards the end of the games, and you've had people in and out of lineups. It's hard to just establish any kind of rhythm. So it's going to be a balance. You're going to see the back-to-backs that we have left. I think we have players resting, but I think at some point you need to get Parker out there. He's been out 3 weeks, and then comes in, plays heavy minutes, goes out again. He needs to reestablish his conditioning and his rhythm, and get back with everybody else on the team on the same page.
Paul, the Spurs right now they hold a game-and-a-half lead over Oklahoma City with Thunder's loss to the Knicks recently. Still, is it still you sacrifice that 1 seed? Who cares about the home court advantage against the Thunder and just take that 2 seed? You'll probably have to face a Denver or Golden State, but maybe the road is a little easier at the 2 seed.
Yeah, it might be easier at the 2 seed. However, it's just that there's 5 games left, and this team does not look like they're ready for the playoffs. We started tomorrow. I'm not sure how much they'd be a favorite just because of the way the condition that they're in. As Jesse said, they're having a lot of the issues are on the defensive side, and also just that offense. I mean, they just go stagnant at times where they just cannot get a bucket into the basket. And they have some pretty favorable matchups coming up with Sacramento, Minnesota, maybe even Denver now that they lost Gallo. And they only have one back-to-back, which is the Lakers and Golden State. So I mean, as I said, I don't. He's going to rest the guys if he needs to. It's up to him. I mean, as he said, Manu threw a wrench in their bucket when he went out with that hamstring injury because that wasn't planned. Like they were kind of coordinating which games to rest guys, but now that Manu went out, he doesn't know how he's going to handle this.
Jesse?
Well, I mean, Steven Jackson was pretty bold the other day, shoot around and saying that Manu's going to be there in the playoffs. He's not going to miss a game. Tony Parker's going to be there. He guaranteed it.
Yeah.
And Steven Jackson. So, I mean, all they have.
Is it one of those things where they now control their own destiny? I mean, now they got a game-and-a-half lead.
They pretty much do. I mean,
Thunder. They can still probably get the best of both worlds.
I mean, if both teams win their last 4 out of 5 games or 3 out of 5, whichever way it goes, I mean, the Spurs could end up with the 1 seed at the end of the day. And as Jesse's saying, you know, Steven Jackson did guarantee that everybody's going to be there come round 1, whether Manu's hurt. He says they won't be 100%, but they're going to play. You know, no one's going to sit out a playoff series. So it kind of makes you wonder, you know, if they get an 8 or 7 seed, do they kind of start working on that, you know, getting themselves back within that first 2 games at home in that playoff seeding just to get that chemistry going?
So are you the opinion that they have to just, all right, whatever seed we get, so be it, as long as we're healthy?
As long as they're, yeah, I mean, that's kind of my factor, but I also think that they're going to want that 1 seed just in case. If it's there for you,
I
they
still
might
disagree
take
with
it.
you. I don't think Pop
that's a
doesn't
direct
care
quote
about
from
it.
Pop. He says if it's in front of you, you don't turn it down. That's what he did say a few nights ago before they played OKC.
He cares about playing well, and if the Spurs are playing Spurs basketball where they're moving the ball, they're playing defense, right now with Oklahoma losing, they control their own destiny. If they're playing well, they're going to get the 1 seed, and that's what, you know, Pop's concern is: playing well, playing defense, and everything else will sort itself out.
Right. Well, speaking of everything sorting itself out, we're talking about you know, the list. You know, you got Manu Ginobili that's hurt. You got Kawhi Leonard, who's been having frequent issues with the knees. You know, and again, you know, I'm of the opinion that, you know, who cares? And I think the panel here also agrees with that too. You know, like, as long as they go in healthy, we should be good, because that has been the issue for the past few postseason is the Spurs' health. But leave your comments at ProjectSpurs.com and, of course, at News 4 San Antonio. Love to hear about what y'all think about this topic. Rest health versus playoff seeding. But heading into the playoffs, we're all talking about the health. But this is still a team, and this bench right now, guys, in my opinion, heading into this season, it was vaunted. Like, oh, they're so deep. I actually don't think they're deep as we think they are. Paul?
Yeah, I mean, the reason why I think they're not as deep is because of, as you said, the injuries that they've been dealing with all year long. I mean, Manu being out a lot of games, Gary Neal, I mean, Nando having to step in and become that new creative force with the bench. I mean, even Thiago Splitter, he's been moved to the bench. Nobody ever clarified with Pop why he did that, but I think it's because Splitter's going to give that bench a few points and rebounds out that they were missing. Steven Jackson's been hurt with that ankle injury all year, so I think that, as opposed to last year, that bench just doesn't have that continuity, that chemistry, because they haven't been able to build it because they don't play together as much. And in the playoffs, I think that's going to go down to about 8 or 9 guys deep. And so I think maybe Gary, Nando, or will be the 2 guys that come in and out.
Here's where I have issues with the Spurs bench now. Now that they pretty much almost got a full season under the belt, Manu's not the same Manu anymore. Let's be honest. He's not. Jackson is not the Jackson that he was back in 03, and he tries to, and we give him credit, but he's not. He's not the same Captain Jackson that we saw. Corey Joseph is still green. Bonner, need I say more? He vanishes in the playoffs. His history shows that. I just don't think this team is deep enough to contend against some of the bigger teams like an OKC or a Denver.
Well, here's the thing. This team has been deep all season, and you don't smoke and mirrors the NBA to a deep quality team through 70 games, and all of a sudden the rest of the league figures it out. This is a deep team, but it comes with in the right context. We always praise the Spurs, their system, as being something that can replace stars, and it just hums no matter who's in there. It's not plug and play. It's built around their stars. All of our role players, they're specialized players. The people that can hit open shots, they move the ball, but they're not necessarily the people that create plays. They take advantage. They attack on the periphery of a defense, on the outside of a defense.
But that's great and all, but you still got to plug these pieces in. And these pieces that they have right now, they're banged up.
But
Manu Ginobili, he's not the same Manu Ginobili. I think, can you honestly say he can give you Manu Ginobili numbers like he used to in the past?
he can, but I think you just need him in there as that creative force who can run the offense when they need the stretches.
He's still a secondary playmaker. Yeah. He's still a quality playmaker, and the de facto point guard on the second unit. He's the only guy there that can create his own shot and create shots for others. Here's the thing. We're all kind of frustrated with the Spurs seemingly limping into the playoffs, and we're worried about whether they're prepared. The Spurs were never built to win a title without Tony Parker and without Manu Ginobili. It's hard to evaluate it because this team was never built to sustain playoff injuries to both of them. It was never going to happen.
Right.
For any team, it's never going to happen. The depth that we have, you saw when Ginobili in the Western Conference Finals, when he got moved in the starting lineup, the rest of the bench became almost non-existent because they lost that creator on the second unit. And they didn't have any way to make it up. They need somebody to... Tony Parker's role isn't necessarily 20 points and 8 assists. His role is to collapse the defense, kick it out, so that when the role player gets the ball, you got a guy rotating at him, you got defenses broken.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but I still think this bench is just... I think it's not as strong as we think it is.
When you put Manu back in there, though, I think you're going to see a little bit more chemistry and continuity. I mean, yeah, as Jesse said, you're going to make him be a point guard maybe quarters 1 through 3, but in the last 5 minutes, he's still going to be your guy that Pop's going to trust to run those plays down the stretch.
Right.
And I think there's 5 guys on the bench that can have an impact. We'll probably get some playoff minutes here and there in series. It would be Manu Ginobili, Steven Jackson, Thiago Splitter, DeColo, and Gary Neal. I don't think Bonner, Corey Joseph.
You're chomping at the bit. I can see it already.
This is the strongest opinion that I'll have. The team, the supporting cast the Spurs have had the last 2 years are everything a team could need to contend for a title. The problem hasn't been the supporting cast. The problem is that our top 2 or 3 guys aren't as good as Durant. They're not as good as LeBron.
Right.
They're not that elite top 5 player anymore.
I guess we shall see very, very soon with the Spurs regular season pretty much with the final week, guys. I think this is it.
No, 2 weeks.
It's about a couple more weeks, yeah. And I guess we'll see just how deep that Spurs bench and whether it is not deep as I think or maybe as deep as these gentlemen believe. But again, once again, leave your comments over at ProjectSpurs.com and, of course, at News for San Antonio. We'd love to hear what you have to say on rest versus health and the playoff seeding and, of course, this Spurs bench. But for, I don't know who this is. I think this is
Jesse.
Paul sorry.
Yeah.
Paul Garcia and Jesse Blanchard. I'm Jeff Garcia. Thanks again for watching this episode of the News for San Antonio Spurs Roundtable.